Hi, this is Binny Freedman from Yeshivat Orayta speaking for Mizrahi on the Parashat of Acharei-Mot Kedoshim. It's not an accident that this year the double Parsha of Acharei-Mot Kedoshim immediately follows the roller coaster week of Yom HaShoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, Yom HaZikaron, Israel's National Memorial Day, and Yom HaAtzmaut, the celebration of Israel's 75th year of independence since the birth of the State of Israel. Acharei-Mot Kedoshim, literally after the death or deaths of those, the holy ones who left us. We get focused on the stories, on the powerful, the evocative images, but in Kedoshim, which very often follows this period or precedes it, there is a cluster of mitzvot. Not to hate, to love your fellow neighbor, and so on and so forth. And amongst these mitzvot are the mitzvot of lo tikom v'lo titor. One is not allowed to take revenge, and one is not allowed to bear a grudge. What's the difference between taking revenge and bearing a grudge? Rashi on the Psukim in Parashat Acharei in the 19th chapter of Vayikra of Leviticus says, lo tikom is, you didn't want to lend me a car yesterday, so I'm not going to lend you a car today. You didn't do it for me, so I'm not going to do it for you. I'm hanging on to it. Bearing a grudge is where I say, even though you didn't do it for me, even though you didn't lend me a car yesterday, I'm still going to lend that car to you. I'm better than you, or whatever that represents. The question is, why is that so terrible? Why is this so important? I understand why you shouldn't hate your fellow Jew. I understand why you shouldn't hate any human being. You shouldn't embarrass a person. But if somebody does something nasty to you, what's so terrible about hanging on to that? Especially when it doesn't actually lead to a change in action. You're bearing grudge. The Rambam in Hilchot Deot, in his masterful treatise on character development, literally in the last halachot, suggests that lo titor, not bearing a grudge, is simply problematic, right? Because, right, v'chein kol hanoter le'echad miYisrael over b'lo taseh, right? A person shouldn't bear a grudge. It's a biblical injunction, because as long as you bear a grudge and hang on to this, he might come to revenge. In other words, one could make a case saying Netira itself isn't so terrible, bearing a grudge, but bearing a grudge might lead you to anger, might lead you to actually take revenge. What's so terrible about revenge? Shouldn't there be justice in the world? In fact, in Parashat Matot, Hashem commands the Jewish people to take revenge against the Midianites for what they did to the Jewish people, a broader discussion for another time. Moshe Rabbeinu says to the Jewish people, Nekom nikmat b'nei Yisrael, take the revenge of the Jewish people. But afterwards it says, Nekom nikmat Hashem. Right? There's a difference between the revenge of God and the revenge of human beings. What's the fundamental difference? So one way of understanding this is that Nekama and Netira, taking revenge, bearing grudge, is not really about the other person. You know, sometimes you'll hear someone say, I refuse to forgive him, he doesn't deserve it. The implication being that my anger towards him, my willingness to hang on to a grudge towards him is about him. It's because he doesn't deserve my forgiveness. But the truth is, anger, revenge, bearing grudge has nothing to do with the other person. I've met people who are angry at people who've been dead for 20 years. They no longer care whether you're angry. Anger is entirely about what it does to us, right? I remember once hearing Rabbi Danny Beller, Zecher Tzaddik Livracha, give a class on the concept of forgiveness. And he pointed out that to be forgiving is to be for giving. It's about being a giving person. You get to decide what you fill your life with, right? When we fill ourselves with anger, the principal damage is the damage it does to ourselves. You know, it's remarkable. It's remarkable that Jews surviving the Holocaust by the hundreds and thousands, broken, having seen their families massacred, living through the most horrendous experiences we can possibly imagine in the camps, came to the state of Israel and built a state. Instead of being consumed by anger, they didn't forgive necessarily, but they decided to continue forward. They built something. Nekama and Netira are problematic because they stifle who we are. I once saw, I take Yeshivat Orayta to Poland every year, and we have a magnificent tour guide by the name of Yitzchak Rubenstein, who once showed us a photo of a siddur that was found in Treblinka. part of the archaeological or excavations there. And inside the front page of the Siddur, under the name of a fellow named Yitzchak Kamenka, he lists the names of his beloved, his wife, his daughters. At the end, one finds the letters Hey Yud Dalet Hashem Yikom Damam. Clearly, they'd been murdered by the Holocaust. Most probably, he witnessed their murder. And at the bottom, he adds 2 words, Tata Nekama. Like Hashem, take revenge on those who took my loved ones. The most amazing thing about that Siddur is that he still, after everything he saw and everything he experienced, he still called Hashem Tata. He still called Hashem Father. 75 years after the birth of the State of Israel, 80 years after the Holocaust, we choose a life of love. We choose a life of growth. We choose to build. These are difficult times that the State of Israel is going through from without and from within. Hashem should bless us not to forget our positions, not necessarily to let go of our positions, but to learn to hear the other, to do it with love out of a sense of giving, and to not let ourselves be filled with anger, with nekama and netira. Food for thought on Parashat Acharei-Mot Kedoshim. Shabbat Shalom.